I just turned my camera, the little box with the little, like right beside the recording box, in between the recording box and the microphone box. Just click on that and you can be seen. Because they did ask us to turn our cameras on.
Yes, they did. And I've just started the transcription and the recording for the session so that we can capture the discussion. Hope that's okay with everyone.
Absolutely.
Zoe, I would suggest that people who didn't get to speak during the last session, if they would like to speak, we'd love to hear their views.
I fully agree with that, but could I just, to start, make one comment, because I think Miriam mentioned it, something which the brilliant Professor Martin Seligman said yesterday, which I take strong issue with and think it's not very logical, meaning that if the bridge world goes digital in the future, there is no need for international or national bridge organizations. I don't see the logic in that. You still need some organization to organize world, zonal, national, county, club, whatever it is, championships, for example. You can't have just random individuals doing that. And you also have other activities that the bridge organizations are doing, educational ones, etc. So I believe even if everything goes digital, there is nothing illogical. We're still keeping all kinds of different bodies. They just have to work in a different area. Thank you.
Look, the problem with government all over the world, as we know, is we have too many levels of government. Certainly we're a federation in Australia and that provides problems to us. But yes, you're going to need certain levels, aren't you, to organise the bridge in the individual countries. I fully agree with you. Any thoughts from anybody else who'd like to join in? The first question on the list that Sam had given us was, is the future tournament bridge digital? What are some of the challenges if that is so?
I've got to. Hey.
Do you have the
One of the things that you mentioned earlier is about having the online at different locations and having people supervise the people playing the tournaments. That would certainly be a little more reassuring to people against the cheating. I don't think there's anything that can beat the excitement of going to a physical tournament. I would be very disappointed to see it all online. It's a chance to reconnect with all your friends and, you know, from all over. So.
Okay, well, a couple of points.
If I can.
Go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I used to be able to see a hand signal, and now it's somehow disappeared. So this is my hand. I actually find that traveling to I like going to tournaments, but I have to set aside all this time to do it. It's expensive. You know, I spend a lot of money on hotels and stuff like that. So, but I like tournaments. I like playing bridge all day. And so if we could do some online, I think that'd be great. I just don't know the mechanics. You know, like the way we've done it on BBO, has it felt like a tournament at all? Like it's just, you know, you play here and then you cut the grass, you know, so it hasn't felt like a tournament. So I don't know how we can manage that, sort of that feeling of it being a tournament, that you're immersed in bridge and yet the convenience of being at home. So if there's a mechanical way to do it, I'd be super interested.
The boys have chosen to share. So the other room that's effectively theirs, they've got as a playroom, which Fred is using loads when friends come around. Arthur's not so much, but Fred just disappears for a couple of hours with his friends, and that's really sweet. Yeah. But
Samantha, if you could hear that, could you tell us what it was? Because we couldn't hear it.
Yes, I couldn't hear anything.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it either. I have put the questions in the chat for you. Somebody might need to turn their mic off if they've got a lot of background noise.
Yeah, that is still there, definitely.
Okay, so while there's silence, if I contribute another line I thought you might like to think about, and that is with running congresses. I don't know whether you have them in Europe or not, but we had a 4 square metre rule in Australia, which is in some places been reduced down to 2 square metres. That is, you had to have 2 square metres for every player. That meant the tables had to be further apart. You took up more space. It meant that if you were hiring a hotel or a big hall, you got less tables in, which financially might make your business model not so good. Any thoughts on that?
I can tell you, if I may, that in Sweden and in all Nordic countries at least, there's a festival or a congress every year. The Swedish one, unfortunately, finally they decided not to hold it face to face, although they have similar regulations. They have these plastic or whatever crosses across the tables, so that you sit kind of in your own little compartment. But finally they are going fully online with the whole festival this year, still doing championships, etc. So the federation has done quite well, actually, moving a lot of activities online. And it's also maybe a cultural question. It's dangerous to go into this maybe in this session, but it may be certain the Nordics are maybe not known for too much cheating problems, and it's maybe easier to sit at home unsupervised than in some other places, but you didn't hear that.
Okay. A second question was from Sam. Are tablets going to replace cards at tournaments?
I don't know how we can make that viable because of the expense of purchasing that many tablets. Our tournaments are rather large, and just.
What about if everybody takes their own tablet?
I
No,
think
you
you'd be
can do
leaving
that.
some people out that don't have the technology.
I think these are special tablets with integrated special software, etc. I don't think it works that way, but I'm not sure.
Okay, no, that may be true. But all of that technology is going to develop, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, as I said before, I do not believe that tablets will, for a very simple reason, replace cards, because once you are gathered at a certain place, if you can play in a safe environment with cards, with tablets, you can do it with cards as well. So I think there's a place for everything, but I don't think it will be a question of replacing play with cards if you're already gathered somewhere.
I'd like to offer a personal contrary opinion.
Go. Yeah, absolutely.
I just simply think that tablets can be less than £100. They run normal software. They don't be specially loaded. You run it on RealBridge or Bridge Club Online, and you don't have the hygiene implications of handling cards and bidding cards in particular, which are often quite filthy. You don't have to prepare the boards. You just get on and play, but you're in a room together. And I see that as a viable way forward. And that means that you can then have the odd person who chooses not to come this week playing from home.
Has anybody who's listening tried playing their normal club session with the sit-out table using the tablets instead?
At my club, when we were running face-to-face, we always had 2 laptops available. So if I had an odd number of pairs, I would have them set up at a table, and when you played what would normally be the sit-out pair, you went and played BBO robots, and your scores were, folded into the regular games. But that was only 2 laptops and only for that half table.
And is that
a
on
lot
BBO?
of my players complained a lot that they hated playing against the robots.
No, I directed both online and face-to-face, and on the online game, what happened was the robots started to take over because a lot of the individuals, the average club member, the robot's a bit better player than that, so they liked playing with the robot. It only cost you 25 cents or something on BBO to employ the robot, and the robot didn't argue with you, didn't tell you how bad you were or anything else. So, we were ending up with too many robots in the session. And then, I mean, as you all know, from being a director on BBO, and you can't have a half table, being able to use robots to fill those 2 seats is fantastic, right? From a management point of view. But you're terrified all day. Gee, I hope the pair of robots don't win the day.
Just a response to Andrew, if I may. Of course, I'm going out from the assumption when I say that you can make it as clean as using your own iPad or whatever. I'm talking about cards being full sets of cards to all tables and personal bidding boxes, etc. Meaning only cards are only ever touched by one player, as well as bidding boxes. So. But it depends,
that doesn't work
on the resources.
That doesn't work so well in small clubs because you don't have enough sets of boards. Right. You have to go and deal all those sets of boards. That's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree about the bidding cards. My partner and I always take our own bidding boxes with us to any face-to-face event.
Yep. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That works fine.
But it's not common practice.
That's one of the things that maybe will be common in the future.
I think the recent science has said that there is a very low incidence of contracting COVID by touching surfaces. So as we're reopening, we're going to go back to, the normal 1 set of boards for a section.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing that for the last 6 months. We're, just normal tables, normal boards. And we have a very old group at the club I direct in. We have a very old cohort of people. And that doesn't, yes, it stopped a whole lot of older people from coming, particularly if they already had, problems, medical problems, and couldn't afford to get COVID. But most of the people didn't wear masks unless it happened to be a period when it was compulsory. They just went on and were quite happy with it as it was. Zoe, can you hear that lady?
I think that's just Andrew's background noise.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Didn't realise that, okay.
Yes, sorry about that. I keep muting myself and I'll do it again.
Okay, so what other points do people have that they'd like to mention about competitions? Look, one of the things that my research showed was that as far as playing Congress is concerned, if I break it into 3 groups, your local Congress, your state Congress, and your National Congress, right? Basically, the National Congress, you have to catch a plane to, pay for a hotel, all of that sort of thing for the week, right? And it showed that there'd probably be a decline in that for a while, but the congresses that are closer to home, within an hour's drive, you didn't have to stay overnight, that they would probably be actually more, have better attendances. So, but at the moment in Australia, we are getting lower attendances than what in events than what we had before COVID. So, yes, you need to take that into account. The problem with organising congresses, as any of you know who organise congresses, you know, you're organising them for 6 months and 12 months out. And, you know, you have no idea what the situation's going to be at the moment, whether you're going to get to happen or not. And, you know, if you have to book a hotel or a convention centre, then you've got a huge deposit to put up. So that's another problem for organising face-to-face congresses. Okay. What else would anybody like to know from the Australian experience of being back playing again? That anything to do with running clubs, etc. None of us have talked about teaching, and teaching is going to come up, I know, later in the Congress. But the teaching aspect of it is very important because we're a very big country, so therefore we have, you know, we have like 50% of our clubs have less than 50 members. About 30% have less than 20 members. They're not very economically viable, and the problem is, how do you get teachers, and most importantly, how do you get them into a supervised class, because you don't have enough people for a supervised class? Any thoughts on that?
It makes some sense to make use of online teaching, I guess, or at least a combination. I guess you can sit in a location physically, some people, and others participate online somehow.
Well, on behalf of the Australian Bridge Federation, we actually gave a bit of marketing support to a teacher in Australia called Paul Marsden. Now, he's an international player, won over 50 events around the world, all that sort of thing, and he loves teaching beginners, which is a really unusual thing. So he went and constructed an online course. Now, in the last 6 months, he's taught over 1,000 people. The first session we ran online, we had 330 people sitting there online. Now, this is people who are average age late 60s who are wanting to learn bridge for the first time. They didn't know how to use Zoom. They didn't know how to use BBO. So it actually made the bridge part of it quite easy in comparison to everything else. But yeah, you know, this has got to be another way forward for teaching people. And then as the people learn, they can go to their local club and start getting integrated into their local club because they can practice online as well. But it was a huge amount of work he had to put in. If you want to look it up, it's Paul Marsden, M-A-R-S-T-O-N, Grand Slam in Double Bay, Sydney, right? And he made videos for all the sessions as well. He made a website for every person, for every one of the 1,000 people got their own website with all their information on it. But that was very professional. I think that's, we have to be looking at that for the future. Our retention rate of beginners at the moment is so low around the world. About 30% of those who start to learn actually go through to becoming active club players. And seeing we're putting in advertisements on this show, in section 4B at the very end, I'm doing a section on marketing, and we'll put up a list of ideas to try and help us in the future, because you all are going to have to work really hard to get the people back to your clubs. Not the concentrated ones, but that last 10 or 20% are going to be really hard to get. How are we going for time, Zoe?
Yeah, I think we're okay for time. There's quite a few comments in the chat at the moment.
Okay, can you use them for me? Yep.
Yes, absolutely. So Diana was saying that they've actually cancelled all their face-to-face tournaments until July 2023.
Wow.
Which country?
New York. So
Okay.
so US. And Judith was saying that their local club has continued with online teaching via Zoom pretty successfully. And Duncan was also saying that in South Africa there's no face-to-face at the moment, but very well attended online competitions.
Yep.
And then Diana sort of just following on there to say that they determined that it wasn't economically viable to hold a tournament, and that clubs are just starting to reopen with about 30% prior attendance.
Yeah, okay, well, that's low.
New York is rather a special case in the US in terms of its economics and how it runs tournaments. So you shouldn't take that as as representing the entire US. This is Nicholas Hammond. I'm in Atlanta. We're starting face-to-face tournaments here. New York has its own set of issues regarding tournaments it runs and trying to find suitable hotels, which was true before COVID.
One of the difficulties we have is the expense of the hotel, and that if you have to space the tables apart and all that,
Yep.
which ACBL came down with ridiculous rules of 8 feet between tables, and you just can't hold enough tables and to make it viable.
Nick, the point Nicholas raised was really interesting because I know that Honours in New York put together about